the SEC clamping down on top of hedge funds, pensions, or anyone else in the space who wants to work with crypto. We're going to revisit the topic because we have a nice piece from CoinDesk reporting on this as well. Yesterday, the report was from Reuters, and now we're going to talk about it from the CoinDesk angle, which basically breaks down the fact that Gary Gensler and a lot of other people at the SEC are not fans of crypto, and they want to protect traditional finance from crypto. And really, they're pulling away a lot of power from crypto custodians' hands and moving it into traditional finance. So according to this piece we have here, which definitely go check out on the website, you see that Gary Gensler and other commissioners at the SEC, they want to allow only traditional finance companies with a lot of the regulatory checks that are in place today to be able to custody funds. The rationale for that basically goes into the commingling of funds. If I have token A and token B in a treasury and they're supposed to be in different places, well, a lot of these crypto firms historically have just put those funds all into one address or one wallet, and that's led to a lot of loss of funds. As Gary Gensler says in this piece, you end up with a lot of people in line at bankruptcy. Sort of a wink and a nod to FTX, which definitely was the case there, where they were commingling a lot of funds. The thing I have here, the nitpick, maybe it's not even a nitpick, it's just kind of calling it out. The fact that they're using this FTX case as an excuse for moving forward with this new proposed regulation. I don't think it's great because FTX was offshore of the US, right? And it was serving a lot of international clients that were not under SEC jurisdiction. FTX US, we're still looking through those books. They might say that those funds are commingled. There seems to be some debate going back and forth. We'll have to wait for more Chapter 11 information to find out. But a little nitpick there. Zach, I'll throw it over to you for your take on this revisit.
A vibe on a Will's History Corner real quick. I mean, I think it was Winston Churchill who once said, "Let no crisis go to waste." And the FTX crisis is certainly a big crisis that's being exploited across the political spectrum to, I guess, further entrench like existing views of what crypto is and isn't. And I think we're seeing this really like ossify, especially on Capitol Hill, along party lines, right? I think Democrats are seeing crypto as this big, bad, exploitative thing. They see the FTX thing as sort of damning evidence that this is a corrupt industry that cannot be brought into regulatory purview in a meaningful way. Republicans are tending to see it a bit differently. They see FTX as a failure of those pesky regulators. Why didn't the SEC do something? And why are they doing this power grab after the fact when they weren't able to protect consumers prior to this big blowup? So I think what we're seeing here is sort of this political process unfold, this regulatory process unfold, and it's getting really interesting in DC and potentially quite worrisome for the industry. I think specifically like that stablecoin action against Paxos with BUSD, if that's another prong of this attack that is happening, that one I think maybe has broader ramifications that are quite scary. This one, I see it as maybe secondary to the importance of that stablecoin action that we're seeing, but it's certainly another part of this sort of multifaceted approach to a bit of a crackdown or a bit of a reassessing of who and how, like how this industry should be regulated and by whom. So yeah, keep watching DC. There's gonna be a lot of news out of DC in these coming months because this is sort of like regulatory time, not crypto time. It takes a few months for this stuff to hit the ground, and we're seeing it really ramp up right now. So yeah, interesting to get some more details from Jesse Hamilton, one of the best crypto policy reporters in the biz. So thanks for fleshing out the initial stuff that we had yesterday, Jesse. Appreciate it. Jen, I'm going to toss it to you though.
Yeah, so the SEC said that an appropriate custodian would generally mean a chartered bank or trust company or broker-dealer registered with the SEC. I thought this was super interesting because in January, we had regulators warn banks against crypto. So we have the SEC saying, if you want to do this, you got to work with chartered banks. And then we had some other regulators, I believe the Fed and the Office of the Comptroller, saying banks, you should actually look at crypto as something really risky and something really volatile and not get involved with it. And so I hate to put the tinfoil hat on. I could be Wendy and put the tinfoil crown on, but I just really think that they know what they're doing. They're really pushing crypto into a corner where it's going to be super hard for people to interact with it. So that's just my take. I never have a good take on any regulation story right now. But Zach, what other thoughts do you got?
I mean, that's exactly why I think the stablecoin thing is so big, right? If that's the big on-off ramp that people use to get into crypto, to trade within crypto, and then ultimately to cash out of crypto, if that point of access is significantly choked off, as is potentially indicated by this action against Paxos and its involvement in BUSD, that I think is like, potentially the biggest place in which what you just said, right, putting it into a corner, making it kind of unusable to most people, like that's quite bad. So I think I'm going to watch that one most closely, and then some of these sort of secondary issues, such as this one, are certainly in the mix. But I think you're right, Jen. Like the putting crypto in a corner, and sort of putting it on a path toward making it just really onerous for most people to use, kind of seems to be what's happening here. And it's a bit striking. So anyway, Will, your thoughts?
Actually going to throw it back to you in a second, Zach. So in 2020, 2021, we did a lot of reporting for CoinDesk about all these different bank charters that people are trying to get, all these licenses and regulations that different people in the industry are trying to get, Coinbase, Genesis, Anchorage, stuff like that. Like they all wanted these just licenses so they could operate within the banking space and get access to federal funds account, get access to more government dollars, get access to more banks. And now we're starting to see that stripped away a little bit, maybe. That's my reading of it, or at least like they're halting the progression of it. So definitely sort of feeds into like that Operation Choke Point 2.0 and the starving of liquidity in the space. But I want to throw it to you, Zach, and understand that topic a little more since you edited all those pieces.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is that Paxos was one of those things that won an OCC charter, right? They were like the third federally regulated crypto, quote unquote, bank, right? They earned that provisional trust charter. And now they're the ones, seemingly just by guilt by association, the fact that one of their main products touch Binance, they're the ones who are now in the crosshairs. And I think, Paxos has gone and said, hey, we're going to fight this. I think Coinbase came out and said, hey, whatever, we're going to support this as well. Or sorry, that may be a mistake, but should it ultimately extend to Circle, there were some rumors that were seemingly batted down quite quickly yesterday that this had also extended to Circle. That's another sort of big industry player that can fight some of the logic that's being put forth in this SEC suit. So the fact that I think that the OCC stuff didn't protect Paxos in this instance is crazy. And I think it sort of like complicates the picture of, okay, cool, we can regulate this within the existing sort of financial regulatory apparatus and it's going to be fine. I think that kind of brings that into question even, right? Like not only are we going to force these companies to get a high degree of licensure in these realms, but that's still not going to preclude you from being subject to SEC action. That's the thing. Like looking back on that cover, it was like, oh, okay, we're going to get an OCC charter and everything's going to be fine. Well, at least in the example of Paxos, that didn't turn out to be the case. So whatever that means for the other things out there, I think is the open question right now. Jen?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I was going to point to the fact that there are so many levels of government and regulation. And the article pointed to, like Wyoming, for example, who has some regulation that is different from the rest of the country, different from federal law. And the response that the SEC gave, or that was noted in the article, was that SEC officials said that as long as a company can meet a list of requirements, they can seek to act as a qualified custodian. For me, this is just like another vague statement that they're saying. What is the list of requirements? How can people in the industry be compliant? I just feel like we wouldn't have all of this back and forth if it was made clear. And at this point, I just think it's not being made clear on purpose. It feels like an easy solution. It feels like if you were to go into the operations at the SEC and say there's like a lot of back and forth going on here, how can we make this easier with the process? It would be an easy fix. So I hope that we get that, but I am not optimistic about it. We'll give it to Will for final words.
No, I'm with you. I'm not super optimistic. I think we're going to see more of these actions, and hopefully the industry has deep pockets enough to hire some lawyers and lobby against it. That's my only take.